to have something like that, an organization like InfoWars go and back us up after we've put out this information is really good. It actually helps get the word out. So kudos to you, Alex Jones and Paul Joseph Watson, for that. The reason for this news brief today is to go over an executive order that was released before the National Defense Resources Preparedness Executive Order, and it's just as important to understand. See, on the 15th of March, President Obama issued an executive order establishing a White House Council on Strong Cities and Strong Communities. Now, guys, you remember not too long ago, we did a news brief on Agenda 21 and the America2050.org. Do you guys remember that?
Yes,
Yeah.
America2050.org. And not only that, while you were just talking, I also remembered his rural council, because he keeps liking to make these councils. He also has the rural council, where now they're going to have somebody come out and tell you out in the middle of Nowheresville, where you live on your farm, how to live your life.
Absolutely. So basically, he comes out with this the day before the executive order for National Defense Resources Preparedness. And one of the things that the executive order on the 16th did was it establishes contingency plans. Now, the first thing, before we get into this one that was put out on March 15th, I just want to say this. This is not the same executive order that was put out in 1994 by President Clinton. My wife went through this in detail just last night. I also want people to understand that changing as much as 3 words in a document can totally transform the meaning of that document. So when you see mainstream media outlets or neocon blog sites say that, oh, well, you know, it's just rehashing what happened in 1994. No, that's not what it is. Basically, what this reads to be is taking into account the potential for a financial catastrophe within the United States. Why would you have to have slave labor? Why would you have to have the ability to manufacture or set up lines of funding or borrowing outside of the international community? You know, you can't export or import. What would cause that? Well, it would cause, the things that would cause that would be like a collapse of the dollar or civil unrest or war. Anything like that could lead to it. Primarily, it would be an economic catastrophe of some sort. And that's my read on this executive order on National Defense Resources Preparedness.
Oh, I thought maybe he was worried that somebody was going to put sanctions against us for violating human rights all over the world, and they were going to start drone strikes. Oh, I'm sorry. That only happens when we're in charge.
30,000 drones. That's right. But I mean, seriously, guys, this is important. So on the 15th, he establishes a White House Council on Strong Cities and Strong Communities. And what this does is starts off Section 1 policy. Cities, towns, and regions across our nation continue to face difficult economic challenges. Oh, really? That's right. The Wall Street Journal talks about this in that $20.8 trillion $20.8 trillion in municipal debt throughout the 50 states. $20.8 trillion. Now, a lot of people don't understand what happens when a municipality can't pay their bills. Well, I'm going to tell you what happens. What happens is the municipality goes into receivership, or what's known as Chapter 9 bankruptcy. And basically what happens is you have a trustee or a receiver that is put in charge of the municipality. Then that municipality is really at the mercy of the trustee. Now, what happens when that happens? Well, first thing is all the contracts that the city or the municipality has entered into is now null and void, meaning police contracts, fire contracts, teacher contracts, all of that stuff goes out the window. And everything starts at square one. But more importantly, what happens is the selling off of assets belonging to that municipality. So now all of a sudden, the parking garages that were built and the revenue that would go back to the city, now they liquidate that and sell it to pay off the debt that the municipality has accumulated over the years. And that's what happens in a Chapter 9 bankruptcy. So basically, because there's a big risk right now of a lot of municipalities entering into a Chapter 9 bankruptcy in the year 2012 to 2013, Obama issues this executive order that, quote, enhancing current federal assistance to lift communities out of distress. What does that mean? Now, that sounds all rosy on the outside. As a matter of fact, if you read this executive order, and the link will be provided in the article and also on the YouTube description box for you to peruse at your leisure. But what this says is, no. Don't worry about that receiver. Don't worry about that trustee. Let the federal government come in and help you out. Let us wipe your woes away. And like I said,
because they're so efficient at doing such things.
Oh, yes. But I mean, what is it? What is it that's the real meat and potatoes behind this executive order? What is it?
The way they couch this, the verbiage that they use for this is, it's kind of like you alluded to, Joe, about everything's all altruistic and hunky-dory, and we're here to do a good thing. So, well, what the hell are you guys doing for the last 20 years? Why do we all of a sudden need to reinvent the wheel here all of a sudden?
Right, but why is the federal government getting involved in states' issues?
Sure.
Whether it be state or local, it doesn't matter. The federal government has no business butting their nose where it doesn't belong.
Absolutely.
Receivership is one thing, and when you go into receivership, you do so because of the let's just say the inappropriate spending that happened over how long for your municipality. Some municipalities are a lot more smart. For example, I'll give you an example. The city of Virginia Beach, Virginia, there's one example that while they have a limited amount of debt, they also had amassed and invested a lot of the excess taxpayer dollars into a account that sits in reserve, and should they run into a problem with a deficit, they tap off of that. Virginia Beach didn't have a downtown. They had no city center or anything like that. It was just sprawling, just a sprawling community, but it was huge. And they pulled money from that fund to build an entire downtown. But I mean, it takes planning, and it takes smarts that you really don't see too much of at the leadership level of these municipalities. So the federal government sees that these municipalities are in distress. And so here they come. Remember this saying, folks, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So the federal government swoops in and they say, no, you need not feel distressed. Let us come to your rescue. We will take care of this. Now, we talked about America2050.org and what their plan was by creating these mega regions, these 11 mega regions. And guys, what this looks like to me is the federal government coming in, buying the debt or relieving the municipalities of the debt, but there will be strings attached. And the strings attached are, if you look at Greece, look at what's going on in Greece and what they've had to forfeit as a result of accepting bailout money. You actually enter into a contract when you accept these funds, and then you're at the mercy of the federal government. I mean, this is really bad stuff. They could essentially do some pretty bad things that will reshape the face of this country. So this, in tandem with the executive order issued on Friday about the resources preparedness, just really shows that we are in a really bad crisis. Outside of the fact of the mainstream media saying, as a matter of fact, John King on CNN today was saying, oh, well, look at statistics tell us that the economy's looking up. Why, look at, and even Mitt Romney says, oh, yes, the economy's getting better, but we need a new president in there to make it even better than it is now. I mean, do you see the crap they're trying to sell you? And meanwhile, underneath the radar, they're pushing this crap.
Well, presidents cannot fix the economy, never will be able to fix the economy, never have fixed the economy. That's a farce. Our problem is people don't know what to do because they've been dumbed down and they don't know where to turn, and they're conditioned to put all their faith in this one person, the president, who over the years has suddenly grown a cape and a huge S on his chest in people's eyes. And they think that the president, quote unquote, the president, will come in and fix everything. The president must be a superhero. The president is nothing more than an office that somebody sits in. Okay? That's all it is. The president is nothing more than an office that has certain executive powers and responsibilities. And that is it. They're not superhuman. All these executive orders are legal, completely and 110% unconstitutional and illegal. Acts of a tyrant.
Absolutely, my man. Absolutely. And some of the things that this executive order looks to do, it says, one, policies for building local expertise and strengthening local economies. Sounds good. Which means policies for building local expertise. Well, that's putting, your federal people in charge of the local economies. Two, changes to federal policies and programs to address issues of special importance to cities and local government that pertain to local capacity and economic growth. Three, implementing best practices from the SE2 initiatives government-wide to better support cities and local governments and opportunities to increase the flexible utilization of existing federal program resources across agencies to enable more performance and outcome-based funding. I mean, basically what this is the federal takeover or the ability of the federal government to take over at the municipal level.
Well, this is absolutely scary, and they've managed this in a way where this whole economic crisis to where it just hasn't all collapsed all at once, and I think they're slowly dragging it out so that they maybe they don't create as much fervor or whatever
They have
as
to.
much.
If they don't drag it out, Tim, if they
Yeah.
let it, if it all happens at once, bam, like that, people will wake up and realize they've been scammed and they
Yep.
will react, and they're not ready for that. So they're trying to get all their ducks in a row and do it gradually. The frogs in the pot theory.
Yep, and that's the point. That's where I was going, was the fact that if they did it all at once, people would be on them, and so it's just been kind of strung out, and you just kind of wait. When is that epiphany going to smack people in the face? It's like, for crying out loud, folks, wake up. Well, Joe, you were mentioning, it be between, Iran and between some sort of financial crisis. And I would probably proffer that they have more than just that out there.
Oh, yeah.
The powers that be, I think that they've probably got the Iran card they could play. And that's probably their last card they'd ever want to do. And then they've got the financial crisis. And they've probably got two or three other things, depending on how the situation goes. I don't think they probably go into all this with just one thing and hope for the best. I think they've probably got some sort of contingency, and God only knows where they'll go with it.
Well, then you have to ask yourself, well, why all the deep underground military bases, and why all the FEMA camps, and why all the seed vaults? Why all that stuff? What's with all the other preparedness that's going on alongside this? I mean, a lot of people don't think about that often, but all that stuff was put into place over the last 20 to 30 years, some even farther back than that.
Oh,
So,
yeah,
I mean,
but even quicker though, Joe. In short time span, I mean, if a timeline would be pretty damning right now if you put together all the things that our government has done, just in the short time. I mean, you're right about the long term, but just in the short term that's happened here recently. If you take a look at all the things that our government has prepared for, it is a very damning timeline. If we keep track of this stuff, but the mainstream media isn't. But if you look at, what the government has done, as a whole, in totality, it's pretty damn scary. And
that's
they
right.
just keep adding on. It's like a pile on.
That's right. And if you ask me, I mean, there's really no justification for the executive branch usurping the authority of the legislative branch in doing a lot of this stuff. And I mean, granted, there is a time